What's up, everyone? Today we're unboxing the HeatBoys Deluxe Edition of the 1/12 or 1/10 scale Leonardo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Let's go ahead and crack these open, shall we? The packaging itself includes a backdrop diorama, which is pretty cool, and you can use it for your posing or display. It comes with two separate boxes, one with the standard edition with the action figure and accessories, and a second box. Let's go ahead and open up the first box. Here's the first set of instructions included with the action figure, and a layout of what's included in the box. In the first clamshell, there are two head sculpts. You get two headband tassels or ribbons, a turtle communicator, and a grappling hook. Also the shoulder armor that we'll go over later on. Here's the second clamshell that shows 6 pairs of additional hands, a slice of pizza, 3 kunai knives, a wakizashi blade, 2 of his katana blade, and the katana effect piece. Now let's check out the actual figure, shall we? Right out the box, it feels really high quality. He's really heavy. He's a big boy, real thick. I like the paint job. I like the green color on his skin. It really represents, I think, what Leonardo should look like, whether it be in the comics or animated series or even movies. I think they got the green right. I do have some issues I will go over later on in the video, so just make sure you stay tuned. The turtle shell looks really cool. The brown in it's really nice. Overall, first impressions, it looks really good. Here's one of the head sculpts that came in the standard edition of him grimacing his teeth. Here's the other head sculpt that was wrapped in paper. I think this is a pre-order bonus. I don't think this is included in the standard edition. I could be wrong. But I did pre-order this one from Bumbusby, so I think this is a pre-order bonus if you pre-order this guy from last year. Here are the two headband ribbons or the tassels. Here's the shoulder armor piece that holds the katanas as well. And you'll see later on that I did have a little bit issue with this one installing it, but it just didn't. I think this is my least favorite piece as far as the accessories, but it's definitely necessary to hold the katanas. Here's another accessory of the grappling hook. I did like this. This is kind of cool. It's like attached to a string that wraps around the, I guess, the grappling hook mechanism. So it's pretty cool actually, and it goes right on his belt. Here's the turtle communicator. The antennas do pop out, and you can slide it open for a picture of April O'Neil, which is pretty cool. This also attaches to his belt. Here's the slice of pizza, nice little accessory. Here's one of the 3 kunai knives. They're all identical, but here's one of them just so you can see how it looks like. Here's a close-up of the wakizashi blade with the sheath. The blades are actually pretty well installed in there. It clicks right in so it doesn't fall off easily. I think it's really well done. It looks pretty good. Here's the katana effect piece. It's made out of a soft plastic, so it's easy to install and remove, and you won't have any issues with it breaking, so it's pretty cool. Here are his 2 katanas with the sheaths. I do like how they look, although they were a pain in the butt to install on the shoulder armor on the back piece. You'll see later in the video, but I think overall they did a good job as far as the paint and the look of them, and they do click in so they don't fall out easily as well, but overall I think they did pretty good. Now let's take a look at the articulation. The head moves pretty freely left and right and can go all the way around too. His neck is a really thick neck, which I think was probably one of the best designs as far as like his body type. The arms articulation are pretty good. They remind me of the Revoltech arms and shoulders. It's a little exposed on the top of the shoulder blade, but I think that's by design, just because we need to like move him a little more freely since he has katanas and swords and whatnot. So I think it makes sense for this figure. The elbows are double jointed, which is almost a necessity these days with action figures of this caliber. You can rotate the bicep muscle, which is pretty good. But yeah, the shoulders are exposed a little bit, so keep that in mind. I know some of us aren't really keen on the exposed joints, especially on the shoulders, so if that's not your cup of tea, then just keep that in mind. His chest is kind of like butterfly joints, so you can have a lot more range in the movement, which is good, especially with his swords. The upper and middle torso can rotate and move. The upper torso more freely than the middle. but the middle can move and rotate it, but you just gotta be a little careful you don't grab onto something or an accessory and break it off by accident like I did. The shell in the back has this little cover that you use to install the shoulder armor, and I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not 100% sure why they went this route or this design. I guess it's for this particular turtle. I don't think his brothers will be this way, but for some reason also the turtle shell, it has articulation. I guess maybe for the stand, so you can put the hook from the stand actually, but you'll see later in the video. Now, as far as the leather belt, it feels leathery, but it's just more of a soft plastic, obviously. These side pieces, you can technically remove them, but at the expense of not being able to reinstall them unless you glue them back in. For some reason, they, instead of molding these into one big piece, they made separate pieces. So I guess it can move more freely, but the problem with that is if it gets hooked onto something or if you accidentally grab it too roughly, it can come off. And the one of the straps here that holds the side blade did come off for me later on when I was posing it, and I had to glue it back on. But yeah, you can't really remove this without having to glue it back on, so keep that in mind when you're posing your figure. The legs have pretty decent articulation. You can actually do a front kick, left kick. You can kind of do a front split, but not a side split. But they do have pretty decent range. There is thigh swivel, obviously. There is double jointed on the knees, which is always great, obviously. And you can also actually bend the toes, and each toe has their own articulation. Even though there are only 2 toes, you can actually do that. You can roll the ankles in different positions, that way so you have more range of motion when you pose them. And you'll see later in the video how I pose this guy. And there's also a swivel on the calf, which is very, very awesome. This is a really good add-on, especially for dynamic posing. Let's check out the second box, the deluxe edition with all the accessories, the big sword and the hat. You have a stand and you have all your cool swords and stuff. This set includes a skateboard, an additional head sculpt, another pair of hands, a scarf, the bamboo hat, some skateboard flame effects that you can attach later on. On the other clamshell, we have the stand with a flexible tube. They call the big sword a machete, but I'm gonna call it the buster sword because it's so massive. Here's the additional head sculpt that's included with the deluxe edition, a screaming head sculpt, which is pretty cool. Here's Leonardo's skateboard. I believe all the deluxe editions of these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from HeatBoys, they're all going to include skateboards with their names on them. And I think they're really cool, actually. The wheels can turn, you can include those flame effects. There is texture on the board, which is really nice. You see the Turtles logo. I think it's really well done. They put a lot of effort into these skateboards themselves. And one of the best things about this, there are magnets on his feet, so you can attach it to the skateboard without it falling off. This is a really cool thing. Here are the flame effects for these skateboards that you can attach to the ends of the rockets. Here's a scarf that's made of a soft plastic. There's some articulation to it, so you can move it around a little bit to your heart's content. Here's the bamboo hat with a magnet in it as well. So there is a magnet in Leonardo's head as well. And you'll see later in the video when I attach it. It's really cool and really well done. And here's the big buster sword. I think they did a really cool job on this design of this big ass sword. There's chips in it. The paint's really well done. It's shiny on some parts. But it's really, really cool accessory. If you didn't get the deluxe edition, you're definitely missing out. But I highly recommend it if you can grab this one. Here's the magnetic base. So it's a really cool thing when they put magnets on action figures. Here are the 4 head sculpts included with the deluxe edition. You have a default face, you have a grimacing face, you have a screaming face, and then you have the Ronin metal mask. Here's how he looks without any of the accessories installed, just a plain old looking Leonardo, which by itself actually looks really clean. I like it a lot. Overall look looks really nice. Here I am trying to install the shoulder armor, and you'll see why I kind of don't like this accessory, even though it's necessary to hold the katana sheath. I found out later on that's much easier to install it when you remove the head, but once you get it on there, you have to click it onto the back part of the shell. There's 2 little pegs that go inside of it, and it doesn't smoothly go in there, which is a pain in the ass. And then once you do get it on there, you can see that it doesn't really fit as snugly as you would want it to. You kind of have to finagle it, or kind of force it downwards. You take the 2 lower straps and you kind of have to put them in place. and you have to position them. It's not like in the promo pics where it looks much lower. It actually looks a little bit higher, but once you get into position, it looks fine. But the top part of the shoulder armor strap side on the left shoulder, it doesn't really sit snugly inside. You kind of have to like wiggle it in there a little bit, and then the shoulder armor piece itself doesn't really sit on the shoulder blade that well. It's kind of floating there, so it doesn't really work well. So I'm not a huge fan of this design of the shoulder strap, and the fact that it's attached to the shell it's kind of a hindrance. Maybe mine's defective. I did reach out to them. You'll see why in a little bit why. As far as for another piece, because mine didn't really sit well, but once you get it on there, it looks okay. But then once you try to install the sword sheath, it could be a little bit difficult, as you'll see in a second. I find it much easier to install them based on the instructions they give you to install the sheaths without the swords, and you can insert them from the bottom at a sort of an angle, and the white strap piece on the back, it's not very loose. Like, it's very tight in there, so you kind of have to force it a little bit, and I fear that some of the paint can chip off from the sheaths. Mine didn't, so it must be a really good paint job, but it was a pain just to get these in here. But once they're in there, they look cool and they stay in place and they won't fall out. But then I had issues trying to remove it without damaging it, and unfortunately I did damage mine. You'll see in a second here that once I try to do different poses with him holding the sheath in his hand and trying to reinstall it, unfortunately the white strap part of the shoulder armor separated from the brown straps, and I had to re-glue it back on. I reached out to the seller, the retailer, about this and took pictures to see if they can send me a new one, because maybe this one's defective. But just be careful if you plan on to remove or reinstall the sword sheaths, depending on what you want to do with it, because it can separate and you may have to re-glue it on. It will reattach, but it won't stay on, unfortunately. The wakizashi blade, also the little brown strap that holds it in place, it's really tight, so be careful installing yours. I find it easier to install it also without the blade, just the sheath itself. And you don't have to put it all the way down like I did to the blue ribbon. I just saw some different pictures and promos that some people did that. The turtle communicator can attach to one of the pegs back here on the rear belt on his shell. You can put it on either side, but I put it on this side here. Same thing with the grappling hook. You can just find the little peg on the back belt on the shell and install it. And these hold pretty well, actually. They don't seem to fall off easily. Here's how he looks with all his armor and all his weapons attached and his accessories. I think overall the aesthetic looks really cool and really well done. I like the design of this turtle. It's just a shame the shoulder armor isn't really well designed, but it is still pretty cool looking overall. Here's a couple poses with the other accessories, like the kunai knife and the blades and everything else. Although the kunai knives don't really fit well in his holding hand, it's kind of loose. There's no real hand for the kunai knife. Next couple images and clips you'll see is me posing him in different dynamic poses with the weapons and accessories, so check them out. The stand itself actually is pretty durable, especially with the hook, and I think this is the part where the articulation in the shell comes into play, where you have to lift the shell up so you can actually insert the hook. Let's check out the other accessories on the Deluxe edition. Here are the flame effects for the skateboard that are attached. They're pretty easy to install, so no big deal here. It looks pretty good too. It is pretty challenging to have him balance on the skateboard by himself. You can do it, but I decided to use the stand to help me with this one. And now for the finale, the Deluxe Edition scarf, the bamboo hat, and the big buster sword. It's pretty easy to install the scarf. You just gotta remove the head and put it on there. You gotta hold it in place and just pop the head right back on. The bamboo hat, like I said earlier, has a magnet on it, so it just attaches to his head pretty easy. There's no pegs, it just bloop, goes right on, and it doesn't fall off. It's pretty cool. Here's a couple poses with the big Buster Sword, which is definitely my favorite accessory of the whole figure. I think they did a good job with this action figure. I can't wait to see his brothers. I think Michelangelo is next. I did pre-order Michelangelo, so that'll be the next one that we get, I think. I don't know about this year. It's probably coming out next year. But I think they did a pretty good job with this one, aside from the shoulder armor issue I had. But it's pretty cool, and if you don't have him, I definitely recommend you getting him. Here's a couple size comparisons with more recent action figures I acquired. We got a snail shell figure. We got the Batman Arkham Origins in-art action figure that came out recently. And I threw in there the Mondo 1/6 scale Donatello that came out recently as well. Check out that unboxing video I did recently as well. But you can see that this is supposed to be 1/12 scale, but he looks more to 1/10 scale, so he's a pretty big boy. Thanks for checking out my video. Make sure you guys check out my other unboxing videos that I have on my channel. Like and subscribe if you can, please, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!